Let yourself grow quiet now. The day is over, and there is nothing more it needs from you. You can let it go, all of it, the way you let go of a long breath you did not know you were holding. Let your shoulders soften, let your hands lie still. Let your breathing grow slow and deep and even, like the slow breathing of the sea against a far northern shore. The story I am going to tell you tonight comes from the far north, from a land of dark forests and still lakes and long, soft, silver mists. It is a very old story, and it moves at the pace of that country, slowly, patiently, in no hurry at all. You do not have to follow it closely. You do not have to remember a word of it. Let my voice be like the sound of water under ice, or wind in the pines, something gentle moving at the edge of your sleep, and let yourself drift toward rest whenever you are ready. You are welcome to fall asleep at any time. In the far north, the old people did not tell their stories the way other people told them. They sang them. They had a way of sitting together in the long blue winter evenings, two old singers facing each other, hands clasped, leaning slowly back and forth, and they would sing the old tales out of the dark in a low, even, rocking voice, one taking up the line as the other let it fall. They believed that the oldest and truest things in the world were not spoken but sung, and that a song, sung rightly, could do more than tell of a thing. It could make it. It could call a thing into being out of the empty air. So tonight is a story about singing and about making, and about the patient old craft of bringing things slowly into the world. It is about the oldest singer there ever was, a wise old man named Vainamoinen, who was born already old and already full of songs, and who sang the empty world into greenness. And it is about a great smith named Ilmarinen, who could forge anything, even the sky, and who hammered out of his fire a wonder called the Sampo, a mill that ground out plenty without end. But those are the deep middle of the story, and we are nowhere near them yet. We begin, as the old singers always began, at the very beginning, before the land, before the singer, before anything at all, when there was only the water and the sky. So settle yourself. Let the warm dark of your room be the warm dark of a northern night. Let the quiet hold you, and let us go down, slowly, to the wide gray water at the beginning of the world, where everything is still waiting to be sung. In the beginning, there was only the air and the wide gray sea, and nothing else at all. The air was empty and high and pale, going up and up forever with no sun in it, and no moon and no stars. And below the air, there was only water, a vast and shoreless sea, gray and slow and cold, with no land anywhere upon it. Not an island, not a stone, not a single reef for a bird to rest on. The sea moved a little, the way deep water always moves, rising and falling in long, slow swells under the empty sky. But there was no one to see it and nothing to break it, and so it went on, gray and patient, for a very long time. In the high, empty air, there lived a maiden, and her name was Ilmatar, which means the daughter of the air. She was alone up there in the pale heights, the only living thing in all the emptiness. And for ages and ages she drifted in the high air, content enough, asking for nothing. But slowly, over the long years, a loneliness came upon her. The gentle loneliness of one who has been alone too long in too wide a place. And the high empty air began to feel cold to her, and bare, and without comfort. So at last, Ilmatar let herself come down. Down out of the pale high air she drifted, slowly, the way a feather comes down, the way the first snow of winter comes down, until she came to rest upon the wide gray water. And the sea received her gently and held her up, and she lay back upon the long, slow swells and let the water cradle her. That was better. The water was cold, but it held her, and it moved beneath her with a slow and living motion, and she was no longer alone in the empty air, but rocked upon the breast of the sea. And there she stayed, floating on the wide gray water, drifting where the swells carried her, for years, and for tens of years, and for hundreds of years, while the slow sea rocked her and the wind moved her from place to place across the face of the endless deep. She did not hurry. There was nowhere to go and nothing to do, and the sea was patient, and so she became patient too. She floated through the long pale days and the long pale nights, rising on the swells and sinking into the troughs, carried east and carried west, watching the empty sky and the gray horizon that was always the same in every direction, water and air, air and water, and no land anywhere at all. Feel how slow that is. Feel how patient. There is no haste in the beginning of this story. None at all. There is only a maiden floating on a wide gray sea under an empty sky, rocked by the slow swells, drifting for hundreds of quiet years, waiting without even knowing she is waiting for the world to begin. Let yourself float there with her a while. Let the slow swells lift you and set you down. Lift you and set you down. The long, slow breathing of the sea, carrying you nowhere, asking nothing, holding you up on the wide gray water under the pale and endless sky. One day, as Ilmatar floated upon the wide gray sea, a bird came flying over the water. It was a sea duck, a small dark bird, flying low over the long swells, and it was searching. You could see it in the way it flew, turning its head this way and that, beating slowly over the endless water. For the duck, too, was looking for something, and the thing it was looking for was a place to land. It had been flying a long time over the shore of the sea, and it was weary, and it longed, the way every flying thing longs, for some small dry place to fold its wings and build a nest and rest. But there was no land anywhere, not an island, not a stone, only the wide gray water in every direction. And so the little duck flew on, searching and finding nothing. Ilmatar, floating on the swells, saw the weary bird, and she felt for it, because she too knew what it was to be alone on the endless water. And so, slowly, she lifted her knee out of the cold gray sea, just her knee, breaking the surface like a small smooth island, the only dry land in all the world. The little duck saw it. Out of all that gray water, a single rounded place, lifted just above the swells, and the weary bird turned toward it gladly and came down at last and folded its wings and rested upon Ilmatar's knee. And there, upon that one small island in all the sea, the duck made itself a nest. It gathered what soft things it could and shaped them into a hollow and settled down. And in the nest it laid its eggs, several eggs of gold and one of iron, and began patiently to brood them, to keep them warm with the warmth of its small body, there upon the knee of the daughter of the air. Ilmatar held very still. She did not want to disturb the nest, and so she kept her knee lifted above the water, steady, while the duck sat brooding upon its eggs day after day. But slowly, the eggs grew warm, and then warmer, and then hot, and the warmth sank into Ilmatar's knee until it began to burn her. until she could bear the heat of the brooding eggs no longer. And at last, without meaning to, she flinched and drew her knee just a little, and the nest slipped, and the eggs rolled from it and fell down into the wide gray sea and broke. But they did not break into ruin. They broke into the world. For as the eggs shattered against the water, their pieces did not sink and vanish. They changed. The lower half of one great shell curved down and became the earth below, the wide, dark land beneath everything, and the upper half of the shell arched up and became the sky above, the great dome of heaven over the sea. The golden yolk of the egg rose up, shining into the sky, and became the sun, to give the world its day. The glimmering white rose up and became the moon, to give the world its gentler night. And the small speckled flecks of the broken shells scattered up across the dark and became the stars, all the countless stars, strewn like seed across the heavens. So out of a few eggs, dropped from a duck's nest into the sea, the whole frame of the world was made, the earth below and the sky above, the sun for the day and the moon for the night, and the stars for the dark between them. It was not made in fury or in a great blow. It was made gently, almost by accident, out of a weary bird's longing for a place to rest, and a kind maiden's lifting of her knee. Let that softness stay with you. The world began because someone was tired, and someone else made a small place for her to rest. There is room in a story like that for you to rest as well. Now the frame of the world was made, the earth and the sky and the lights of heaven. But the earth itself was still bare and still empty, and there was no one yet to walk upon it. And Ilmatar, the daughter of the air, still floated upon the wide sea, and within her now there stirred a life, for she was to be the mother of the first of all people. But this child was in no hurry to be born. He rested within her, unhurried, patient, the way everything in this old story is patient. And the years went by, and still he waited, gathering wisdom in the dark and the quiet, before ever he saw the light. The old singer said he waited a very long time indeed, growing not as a child grows, but as the old grow wise, so that when at last he came forth, he was not a baby at all, but already an old man, gray-bearded and deep-eyed and full to the brim with the oldest songs in the world. His name was Vainamoinen. When at last he was ready, he came forth from his mother into the sea, and he found himself in the cold gray water under the wide new sky, with the new sun upon the water and the new earth lying low and dark along the horizon. And for a long time he simply floated there, as his mother had floated, rocked by the swells, looking at the sky and the sea and the far dark line of the land. He drifted for years upon the open water, in no haste, patient as the sea itself, until at last the slow currents carried him in toward the shore, and his feet touched the bottom, and he rose up out of the sea and stood, for the first time, upon the dry and empty land. He stood there on the bare shore, the old singer, newly come into the world, and he looked about him at the earth that had no green thing growing on it. The land was bare. There were no trees, no grass, no flowers, no forests, only the dark bare soil and the stones and the wide water behind him and the empty sky above. It was the frame of a world, but it was not yet a living world. And Vainamoinen, looking at all that bareness, knew in his old and patient heart what needed to be done. It needed to be sung into greenness. It needed to be planted and tended and called slowly into life. And he was the one to do it, for he had been born with all the oldest songs already in him. And he knew that the deepest work in the world is not done with force, but with patience, and with making, and with the slow right words sung over the bare ground until it answers and grows green. So he did not despair at the emptiness. He was not troubled by how much there was to do. He simply stood upon the shore in the light of the new sun, an old man at the beginning of the world, and he began quietly to think how he would make the bare earth bloom. Rest a moment here with him on the quiet shore before the work begins. The world is new. The light is soft. There is everything still to do, and all the time in the world to do it, and no reason at all to hurry. Vainamoinen looked at the bare earth, and he knew that it must be clothed in green. And so he called for help in the patient way of the old world, and a young helper came, and together they began the long, slow work of sowing the land. They took seeds, the seeds of all the growing things that were to be, and they walked out over the bare, dark soil, and they sowed. They scattered the seeds of the trees across the hills and the valleys, the seeds of the pine and the spruce and the birch and the alder, the seeds of the rowan and the willow and the juniper. They sowed the seeds of the heather across the high, bare places, and the seeds of the berry plants in the low, damp hollows, and the seeds of the grasses and the reeds along the edges of the water. Up and down the bare new land they went, scattering, sowing, planting, walking slowly over the dark soil under the new sun, and saying over the seed the old soft words that would help it wake. And then they waited, in the way you must always wait for growing things. And slowly, slowly, the bare earth began to answer. A faint green came creeping over the dark soil, a softness, a haze of new growth. The grass came up first, thin and pale, and then thicker and greener. The heather spread across the high places, and the trees began to rise, slowly at first, small shoots pushing up through the soil, and then taller and taller, until the bare hills were clothed in young forests, the pines climbing the slopes, the birches shimmering pale along the valleys, the dark spruce gathering in the low, wet places. The land that had been bare became green and breathing and alive, full of the soft sound of leaves and the rustle of grass in the wind off the sea. But there was one seed that grew too well. An acorn was planted, and from it there rose an oak, and the oak did not stop growing. It grew and grew and grew, taller than any tree should ever grow, its trunk thickening like a tower, its branches spreading wider and wider across the sky, until at last its great, dark crown of leaves spread so broad that it covered the whole sky and shut out the light. The sun could not shine through it. The moon could not shine through it. The whole green world fell into the shadow of the one great oak. And under that shadow, the new forests grew dim, and the grass grew pale, and the world that had just become green began to grow cold and dark beneath the endless leaves. This was too much. A tree that swallows the sun is no blessing but a burden, and the great oak had to come down so that the light could return. But it was so vast that no ordinary strength could fell it, and for a while it seemed that nothing could. Then there rose out of the sea a small figure, a tiny man no taller than a thumb, but armed with a small bright copper axe, and small as he was equal to the task. For the deep magic of the old world does not depend on size. He set his small axe to the base of the great oak, and he struck, and struck again. And at the third blow, the enormous tree shuddered and groaned and came down at last, its great crown falling away, and the light of the sun and the moon came flooding back over the world. And where the great oak fell, the old singer said, its wood and its broken branches became a blessing of their own. For whoever gathered a piece of that magical tree gained some good fortune from it. So even the felling of the burden became a gift. The sun shone again on the green forests. The moon rose again over the still lakes. And the world, balanced now, neither bare nor smothered, settled into its right and living greenness, with the light coming and going gently over a land that was at last fully alive. Now the world was green and living, and in it the old singer Vainamoinen walked, and as he walked he sang. And his singing was unlike any singing the world has known before or since, for Vainamoinen did not sing only for the beauty of it, though his songs were very beautiful. He sang the way the Old North believed all deep things were done, with words of power, with the true old names of things, so that when he sang of a thing rightly, the thing itself would answer and obey. This was the deepest craft in all that world, deeper than any strength of the hands, the craft of knowing the true songs and singing them in the right, slow way. And no one had ever known the songs as Vainamoinen knew them, for he had been born already old and already full of them, and he had been singing, in a way, since before he was born. When he sang, the old tellers said, the whole world stopped to listen. The wind in the pines grew still. The water on the lakes lay flat and quiet. The beasts of the forest came softly out from among the trees and lay down to hear him. The birds came down and settled on the branches around him and were silent. Even the sun and the moon, they said, leaned a little closer in the sky to catch the sound of his singing. For there was in his voice the slow, deep peace of the very old, who have seen so much and grown so patient that nothing hurries them anymore. And to hear him sing was to feel that same slow peace come stealing over you, settling the heart, quieting the mind, making everything still. He sang the songs of how the world was made, the songs we have been telling tonight, the water and the air, the duck and the egg, the sowing of the green land. He sang the names of the trees and the names of the waters and the names of the deep things under the earth. He sang the histories of all that had been, in his low rocking voice, leaning slowly back and forth, and the songs went out over the still lakes and the dark forests and sank into the land and became part of it, so that ever after, in that country, the rocks and the waters and the old trees seemed to hold a memory of having been sung to and to keep, in their stillness, a little of the singer's peace. And here is the gentle wisdom at the heart of this old story, the thing to let settle over you now as you drift. The greatest power in this world was not a power of war or of force or of fury. It was the slow, patient, quiet power of song. It was the power of knowing the true names of things and saying them gently, of making rather than breaking, of seeing the world into greenness and peace rather than forcing it. The hero of the far north was not a warrior. He was an old man with a deep voice and a head full of ancient songs, who walked through the green world he had helped to make and sang it slowly into stillness. Let his voice be under your voice now, under your breathing, under your slowing thoughts. The old singer is singing somewhere out over the still northern lakes, in his low rocking voice, and the wind has gone quiet to listen, and the water lies flat and calm, and the beasts have lain down in the soft grass. And you may lie down too, and be sung over, and grow as still and as peaceful as the listening world. Now, in the far, far north of that world, there lay a cold and shadowed land, and its name was Pohjola, the North Country. It was a dim place of long winters and short gray days, ruled over by a powerful old woman named Louhi, the mistress of the North, who was wise in her own way and strong and not to be trifled with. And it happened, in the way of the old stories, that Vainamoinen came at last, after long wandering, into the cold country of Pohjola, weary and far from home. Louhi, the mistress of the North, received the old singer in her hall, and she warmed him and fed him and let him rest. For even in the cold north there were the old laws of welcome, but she saw that he longed to go home again, south to his own green land. And she was a shrewd old woman, and she saw a chance to win something for her cold country. So she said to him, "I will help you home, old singer, and give you all you need for the journey. But you must do something for me in return. You must give me a Sampo." Now, the Sampo was the greatest wonder that could be made in all that world, and everyone in the north had heard of it, though no one had ever yet held one. It was a mill, a magic mill, but not a mill for grinding only one thing. The Sampo, if it could be made, would grind out grain on one side, and salt on another side, and gold on the third, and it would never stop, and never empty, and never wear out. It would grind out plenty without end. To own a Sampo was to never again know hunger, or want, or cold, for it would pour out food and wealth forever, day and night, of its own slow turning. In the long, hard winters of the north, you can imagine what such a thing would mean. It would mean the end of fear. It would mean plenty, always, no matter how deep the snow. But Vainamoinen, for all his songs, was no smith. He could sing the world green, but he could not forge metal in a fire, and the Sampo was a thing of metal and of fire and of the deep craft of the forge. And so he said to Louhi, mistress of the North, "I cannot make the Sampo myself, but I know one who can. There is a smith in my own country, the greatest smith there ever was, and his name is Ilmarinen, and there is nothing he cannot forge. He forged the very dome of the sky in the beginning, and hammered it out so finely that you cannot see a single mark of the hammer upon it to this day. If anyone in all the world can forge you a Sampo, it is Ilmarinen. I will send him to you, and he will make it." And Louhi was content with that promise, and she gave the old singer all he needed, and set him on his road home through the snow. So Vainamoinen went home at last to his green country, and there he found the great smith Ilmarinen, and told him of the cold north, and of Louhi, and of the wonder she desired. And it was settled that Ilmarinen would go up into the north, to the cold country of Pohjola, and there at his forge attempt the greatest work of his life, to hammer out of fire and metal the magic mill that grinds out endless plenty, the Sampo. Rest here a moment, in the warm pause before the great work, while the smith makes ready, and the fire is laid, and the long patient labor of the forge is about to begin. So Ilmarinen the smith went up into the north, into the cold country of Pohjola, and there he built his forge. He chose his place, and he raised his furnace, stone upon stone, and he gathered his fuel, and he set up his great bellows to blow the fire, and he laid his metals ready, and at last he kindled the flame. And then the long work began, the slow and patient work of the forge, that cannot be hurried, that takes as long as it takes, that asks of the smith nothing but steadiness and patience and the willingness to keep on day after day until the thing is done. Ilmarinen worked the bellows, and the fire roared and glowed, first red, then orange, then a fierce bright gold, hot enough to soften the hardest metal. And into the fire he set his materials, and he watched them, and he waited, and he worked, leaning over the heat, his face lit by the glow. The deep, patient work of making filling all his hours. Day after day he labored at the forge, blowing the fire, watching the metal, drawing it out and folding it and working it. And day after day he looked into the heart of the flame to see what was forming there. And strange things rose up out of the fire before the Sampo came. The old tellers said that on the first day, something rose from the flames, but it was not the Sampo. A great bow rose up out of the fire, beautiful and bright. But there was a fierceness in it, a wrongness, and Ilmarinen looked at it and knew it was not what he had come to make, and he broke it and threw it back into the flames and worked on. On the second day, something else rose from the fire, a fine red boat, but it too had a wrongness in it, a restlessness, and the smith broke it and threw it back and worked on. And so it went day after day, as one thing after another rose from the fire and was found wanting and was given back to the flame. For the smith was patient and would not stop, and would not settle for less than the true and perfect thing. He called on the winds to help him, the old tellers said. He set the four winds to blowing his great bellows, the east wind and the west wind and the north wind and the south wind, and they blew the fire as no human arm could blow it, steady and strong and endless, until the furnace blazed with a heat such as the world had never seen. And Ilmarinen worked on in that great heat, patient, steady, leaning into the long labor day after day, while the winds roared in the bellows and the fire blazed gold, and the metal slowly, slowly took its true shape at last. And then, at last, on the day when the work was ready, Ilmarinen looked into the heart of the fire and saw that the true thing had come. He reached in with his tongs and slowly, carefully, he drew it out. The Sampo, the magic mill, born at last out of fire and patience. It was a beautiful thing, the old tellers said, with a many-colored lid upon the top of it, a lid of many bright colors that turned slowly as the mill worked. And Ilmarinen set it down, and he started it turning, and the wonder began. For the Sampo ground. On the one side, it ground out grain, good flour pouring from it in a soft white stream, more than enough to eat, and then more, with no end. On another side, it ground out salt, precious salt, pouring out in a glittering stream. And on the third side, it ground out gold, bright coins, and bright dust, flowing out endlessly into the cold northern hall. It ground in the morning, a measure to eat, and it ground at noon, a measure to sell, and it ground in the evening, a measure to store away, and it never stopped, and never emptied, and never wore down. The endless plenty of the Sampo poured out into the north, and the long fear of the hungry winters was ended. For here, at last, was a thing that gave, and gave, and gave, and gave, of its own slow, patient turning, forever. Louhi, the mistress of the north, took the wonderful Sampo, and she carried it deep into a stone hill, and there she set it safely, turning and grinding, filling her cold country with plenty. And the great smith, Ilmarinen, his work finished, the greatest work of his life behind him, rested at last by his cooling forge, weary in the good, deep way of one who has made something that will outlast him. He had forged the sky in the beginning. Now he had forged the mill of plenty. There was nothing left for his hands to do, and so he let them rest. So the world was sung into greenness, and the mill of plenty was forged in the fire, and the far north, that cold and shadowed country, was filled at last with grain and salt and gold, turning out endlessly from the many-colored Sampo deep in its hill. Think back now, slowly, over all the long, patient way the story came. The wide gray sea at the beginning, and the daughter of the air floating upon it for hundreds of quiet years. The weary duck and the lifted knee, and the eggs that fell and broke and became the earth and the sky and the sun and the moon and the stars. The old singer Vainamoinen, born already old and full of songs, rising from the sea to sow the bare land green. The great oak felled so the light could return. The slow, deep power of the song, that made rather than broke, that quieted the wind and stilled the water, and called the world into peace. And the great smith at his forge in the north, patient through all the long days, until the wonder came at last out of the fire. And notice, as you drift, what kind of story it has been. There was no great battle in it. There was no fury, no conquest, no breaking of the world. There was only making, slow and patient, again and again. A maiden making a small dry place for a weary bird. A duck making a nest. A singer making a green world out of bare ground with the patient power of his songs. A smith making, out of fire and steadiness and many days of labor, a thing that pours out plenty forever. The far north did not tell of heroes who destroyed. It told of singers and smiths and makers who brought things slowly and patiently into being. And that is a gentle thing to carry down into sleep. For sleep, too, is a kind of patient making. While you sleep, slowly, quietly, out of sight, something in you is made again. The day's weariness is ground away like grain from the Sampo, and out of the dark, by morning, plenty is poured back into you. New strength, new clearness, a whole new day's worth of light. You do not have to do it. You do not have to work the bellows or sing the songs. You only have to lie still in the warm dark and let the slow patient making happen on its own. The way the land grew green on its own once it was sown, the way the Sampo ground on its own once it was set turning. So let the old singer sing you down now into that rest. Here, if you can, somewhere far off over the still dark lakes of the north, the low rocking voice of Vainamoinen, leaning slowly back and forth, singing the old songs that made the world. The wind has gone still to listen. The water lies flat and calm under the moon that was once the white of an egg. The dark forests stand quiet. The forests he sang up out of the bare ground, and deep in its hill the Sampo turns, slowly, slowly, grinding out the plenty of tomorrow while the whole north sleeps. There is nothing left for you to do tonight. The sea is calm, the land is green, the mill is turning, the song is sung, and it will hold, and it will still be there in the morning. Let my voice grow faint now. Let the old singer's voice grow faint too, far away over the water, until it is only a warmth at the edge of the dark. Let yourself sink, slow and deep, down past the last thin edge of waking, into the still gray peace at the beginning of all things. Sleep now. The song stays. The world is made. Good night.